So we started to introduce project management capabilities into DDM end of March 2018. And it came about through an inquiry from an existing customer who was looking for requirements management. Now, the more we looked into this, and I spent a day sort of thrashing it out with this customer, the more we looked into this, the more I realised that actually what they're looking for are the basic components of general project management. Feedback that I get from the project managers, and now we've been showing it to customers and prospects for 2 or 3 months, the feedback that I get is a lot of the project management tools on the market are really quite complicated and so involved the project or program manager just becomes a reporting mechanism. They spend all of their time having to consult with all of the people who are doing the actual work in order to update their project management tool so they can report to somebody at a higher level. It's not really what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to do here is build all of the tools into DDM so that almost as a byproduct of everybody doing their daily work, that level of visibility on projects is there by default. It's already there. We use folders, a folder type object, because it's a container, to manage the various different processes. As I said, change orders, non-conformances, customer projects, NPD projects. We use a folder type object. Okay. Now, you can have any type of folder object that you want. So you could have programs, you could have projects, you could have sub-projects or streams, and then obviously below that we've got these action types, one of which is a requirement. We get a job and we get a statement of works or a specification or a brief, and it has a set of requirements that we need to achieve on that job. Well, now you've got the ability in DDM to set those requirements in the database and assign them to people. You have the ability to set tasks against those requirements in order to make sure that we're achieving the requirements. And the other sub-action types that you can create is we can register an assumption. So if we need to make a decision because we don't have all of the information, but we still need to make the decision, we can register an assumption and put the details in. We can create decisions. Quite often we'll remember what decision we made, but we don't necessarily remember how we arrived at that decision. So the ability to record that against a project or a program is really valuable. We can create issues, opportunities, risks. Of course, the risk, if it happens, it might become an issue. As I've said, we can create requirements, we can create milestones, and the other thing we can create are basic tasks, things that we need to do. So if we think about all of these different sub-action types, what we've also included is the ability to automatically or manually create them. So throughout any point of a workflow process, you can create tasks or issues or requirements, etc. manually. Okay. What we've done is we've also built in the ability to automatically trigger these sub-action types at any step in the process. So if I was working on a change order and I go to the change request approval, look, we found a problem, we need to raise the change order and it's going to have to be sent to somebody or a group of people, and they're going to say yes or no as to whether we're going to make that change. Now, in order to make the change, they're going to do an impact assessment. So whether it's just a single department impact assessment or whether you're doing an impact assessment across all departments, what we can do here is at the point when you send your change request to the change request approval, you can automatically have the system create a task or a series of tasks for those impact assessments to be done. Now, what you can also do is you can say, well, I've automatically created or manually created these tasks, and these tasks need to be completed by a certain step of the process. Now, if I've created 5 tasks, 2 of them might need to be done before we can move to the next step, but the other 3 may only be required at a step further down the line. So the new attributes that we've created or introduced into DDM Let's start with the RACI attributes. Again, this is all related to project management. And the RACI attributes give us the ability to assign who is responsible for the program, the project, or the action. Who is accountable for it, and when we look at accountability, one individual must always be accountable. You can't have it based on a group because everyone will assume that someone else has taken responsibility or accountability. We've also got the who needs consulting and who needs informing. So responsible, accountable, who needs consulting and who needs informing, they give us the 4 RACI attributes. So across all folders and action types, these are now available within DDM. The next set of attributes that we've introduced are the RAG status attributes. So RAG as in red, amber, green. Green is good, amber not so good, red really bad. It's quite simple. And we've got these 3 new attributes. You know, are we on schedule? Are we on budget? And are we on specification? So at any level, you can set, whether it's program, project, or action type, you can set this RAG status, and it's a little coloured attribute, and you can set it in the main user interface. So we've done a lot around making it easier to modify these attributes in the main user interface so that it almost works a bit more like Excel or Outlook rather than having to go through a whole load of editing steps to be able to achieve something. So the RAG status is available across all folder types and all action types. So the next one is for time against something. Okay. And it varies from customer to customer or prospect to prospect, and we pretty much consult everybody we're talking to now. Lots of people don't track time against things, or they only track time against certain types of jobs, like maybe a customer job or R&D, but not necessarily against a change order. We've added a capability to be able to allocate time at any level and to log time at any level. So there's 3 attributes: how much time has been allocated, and there's a separate window to show you the summary of this. And then you can log time, so there's another attribute telling you how much time that you've spent on something, and then the 3rd attribute is how much time is remaining. So if I've allocated 10 hours to something, but we've spent 15 hours on a job, then the time remaining will show as a -5, and we have color coded the text to make it red again, so that you've got this sort of real-time visual indicator as to what's going on within your program or your project or your particular action. So the last thing we've introduced at this point in time are dates. I say at this point in time because we're going to continue to build on this project management type capability. The dates that we've introduced are start date, due date, and callback date. The start date, because the date something was created or assigned to you isn't necessarily the date that you started working on it, and the due date obviously can preset to set an expectation on when something is required. The final one is the callback date. And the callback date is not particularly clever, but it's very, very useful. Is, if I'm working on a program or a project or an action, a task, and I need something from somebody else, or there's some reason why I can't continue to work on it at this point in time, I can set the callback date. Okay, so I spoke to Neil, and Neil's away for the next 2 weeks, so I'm going to have to shelve this. I'm going to set the callback date for 2 weeks' time. So it's just a way of having a visual indicator so that I can prioritize all of the things that I'm doing, because I'm working across multiple things across multiple jobs. The beauty of the callback date is that when that callback date has passed, it turns red, so the text goes red. So it's nothing particularly clever, but again, as this simple visual indicator, it helps you manage what you're doing. Okay, so all of these things, in terms of the visual indicators, whether it's the RAG status or the callback date, really gives the project manager or the program manager, or even the individual, something very simple and visual so they can make informed decisions. We're not trying to automate and overdo this, because then you start tying yourself in knots. So really some nice, simple, useful project management type capabilities in DDM. So they're available out of the box when you install DDM on a new customer site, and they're available in the background for any existing customer that takes an upgrade. The reason I say in the background is we can't automatically switch them on in the user interface on the folder templates, because if a customer has configured their template to suit their specific requirements, we don't want to start overlaying our information over theirs. So, if you're an existing customer and this is of interest, give us a call and we will show you how to switch them on and where they are. So in terms of the future, some of the things that are coming about from talking to customers and prospects are things like, we want to be able to run a risk opportunity report or matrix, and we will run it within the interface. I'm not really in favor of running paper reports out or PDF reports out to send them to people. To be able to look at something real time and interact with it is where the real value is. So a risk opportunity matrix, we might also want to look at the RACI chart against a particular project or against all projects. Other things that are cropping up are the ability to have a Gantt chart style view on an individual's actions or their timeline as to whether they've got capacity to do more stuff. I might be a project manager looking at a particular project and want to look at the timeline of that project. Okay, so there's lots of things that are coming out of putting this set of basic project management building blocks in place. It's been really fascinating. We're all very excited about it, and so far most people who see it are very interested in some aspect of it. Like with all things in DDM, we don't dictate how you need to run as a business, but we do make the tools available in the base product so that they are available to you, if, as and when required.